I'm Madhu Parhar. I have with me today Tata Ramakrishna. I would like Tata to very briefly tell about his education and what he was doing in the last 2-3 years.
I'm Tata Ramakrishna. Earlier, first of all, I would like to tell you that I'm a visually impaired person. Before joining IGNOU, I was doing my PhD from JNU only. Before to that, I have done my masters in the political science and MPhil on displacement, rehabilitation and developmental aspects. And now in my PhD, I am working on the different educational policies on differently abled.
Thank you, Ramakrishna. We will be talking to you in detail about it. This time we thought that we will take a different subject altogether, that is on the disability or the differently abled people. All along, since our independence, the country became independent, there have been several committees and several policy making in which the disabled people were given importance, but somehow it was not focused. I mean, the right focus was not given to the differently abled people. It was more of the sympathy and the kindness. Each individual, as like a normal people, the differently abled people also have the right for education. Hence, we decided to take this subject today. I know RCI, that is the Rehabilitation Council of India, has been doing programs through this technology, that is the satellite technology, but we thought let us do, as I said, that the right focus was not given to the education of the differently abled, but now the situation has been changing. Earlier, many NGOs were doing, or many NGOs were taking part in the education of the differently able, but the schools and the colleges were not emphasizing on the education. Though in all the policy documents, all in the committee documents, schools were given a lot of importance. Like we had the inclusive education, the education at the school, it was integrated in the schools, but not at the higher education level. Very recently means in the last year, on 21st of March 2005, the Honorable Minister of HRD, Human Resource Development, Mr. Arjun Singh, made a very important statement in the Rajya Sabha, which exclusively talked about the education of the differently abled people. In that, he talked about the raising of funds. He said that we have to include the differently abled people to the mainstream, not just through the special schooling. He made 8 action points which are important for all of us to understand. And one of the important point was to promote distance education to teach these differently abled people so that they have individualized pace of learning. With this, I thought we will take up little bit of the disability situation in the country at the school level as well as the national level as well as the higher education level. To start with, this is distance education for differently able, if you see the slide. Now, what is the objective of the differently able, the education of the differently abled people? There have been many acts, parts, there have been many policies have written about it, many committees have written about it, but the main objective of the education of the differently able is, I read, empowering persons with disabilities and making many disabled persons active, secondly self-reliant and productive contributors to the national economy. So all basically acts and committees and the commissions, whatever they said, the gist of the education of the objective or the gist of the education of this differently abled is this basically empowering everyone, the differently abled people. Now let's see the disabilities. What are the various disabilities? I am sure all of us we know, but still we will just go through it at a quick pace. First is the visual impaired. Under the visual impaired, again it is completely blind. Secondly, low vision, and thirdly, some of them the color blindness also, they say it is also the visual impairment. Ramakrishnan, would you like to share something about this here at this point?
Yeah, the total blindness is considered when both of the eyes of a person are completely damaged, or a person who cannot see at all is considered always as a total blind. But low vision affects many persons in our country, as they can see something but they can't see fully. But when one eye is affected by some accident or some by injury, then that person will be considered as low visual or having low vision problem. In this way we can classify it.
Okay, see, the thing is, complete blindness one can recognize in individuals, but the low vision or the color blindness, it is very difficult for people to know about it unless and until the teachers, they are made aware of identifying it, because we need to prevent it, but identification is also very important. Hence, in the classrooms, because you have to identify it in the very beginning at the school level, so teachers has to be trained to identify the low vision so that it can be cured and further prevented. Second disability is the locomotor, mainly which is, we can say, the orthopedic locomotors. Tata, would you like to add here something about the locomotor disability?
Yeah, as locomotor disability is concerned, then people who have been victimized by the problems of their legs, arms, or as they cannot move freely, those sort of people have been considered as locomotors in India.
The third is the hearing and the speech impaired. Hearing, again, it is categorized like mild, severe and moderate. In speech also, we all know that there are various categories of speech disabilities like stuttering, stammering. You have language which cannot be pronounced by people. So these are various categories of hearing and the speech disabled people. And the last is the mental disabilities, which is a vast area which covers about it, which here at this moment we will not talk about it. Now let's see the little bit of data about the population of the differently abled people in our country. The NSSO data, that is the National Sample Survey Organization, the NSSO data 2002 shows that there are 1.85 crore people in our country who are differently able, which forms almost 1.8% of the total population. The census data of 2001 shows that the differently able people or the disabled people in our country is 2.19 crore, which basically it is 2.1% of the total population. Both these data, the NSSO data and the census data, differ. The NSSO data is based on a sample survey basically, and the census data is they use a different technique. So there is a variation between these two data, that is 1.85 to 2.19, but we can fix it at around 2 crore population which is differently able in our country at this moment. Out of this, 83% reside in the rural areas. So you can see what is the proportionate of people which are living in the rural area, differently able people living in the rural area. Earlier, let me inform that earlier till 1991, census never used to include the disabled or the differently abled people in their census data. So, but from 2001 they started doing it, and now state-wise they have included the differently able people. The next slide shows the population and the type of disability. Here you will see there is so much of variation if you see the table. In the first column, this is the type of disability. We have locomotor, visual hearing, speech and mental. Now according to NSSO data 2002, we had the locomotor disabled people were 106 lakhs, whereas according to the census data 2001, there are 61 lakh people which suffer from the locomotor disability. Let's see the visual disabilities. According to the NSSO data, it is 28.26, whereas the census show 106 lakh people. Just see the difference in the data. The locomotor says 106 here NSSO, and here it says 61, whereas visual it says 28 here, and according to the census it is 106. The hearing impaired is 30 lakhs according to the NSSO data, whereas the census data shows it is 12 lakhs. The speech disability we have 21 lakhs and 16 lakhs, and for the mental it is 20 lakhs according to the NSSO data and 22 lakhs according to the census data. If we see this table clearly, we see we have more population in the locomotor and the visually disabled. Hence, we have to work for all the disabilities, but if we concentrate on the locomotor and the visually disabled people, we will be bringing these disabled people into the regular education. Another table which shows, this table shows about the literate and the illiterate disabled population in our country. The disabled population, again I have categorized it into visual, speech, hearing, locomotor and mental. The literate population, the visual literate population is 53 lakhs and is the same number, almost 53 lakhs 33,000, the illiterate population in our country. Speech is, the literate is 5 lakhs, whereas there is almost a double number of 10 lakhs people who are illiterate in the speech disability. Hearing disabled people, it is 5 lakhs are literate and 7 lakh are illiterate. Locomotor, again if you see the difference between the literate and the illiterate, the locomotor people with locomotor disability, they are 35 lakhs they are literate and only 20 lakhs they are illiterate. And the last category is the mental disability, which is 8 lakhs are literate and 14 lakhs are illiterate. So if you see the number of literate and illiteracy, which is again the data has been collected by the census 2001, which shows this the number in each category. Now let's see what is the situation in higher education of these differently abled people. Basically, we all know that the government of India wants the enrollment to be increased in higher education from present 6% to 10% by the end of the 10th plan. So what basically we have to do, they are doing it the general category, but we have to emphasize on this differently abled people also, this differently abled group also. So the higher education status at the moment, according to the NCPEDP, Ramakrishnan, can you just give the full form of NCPEDP to us?
National Council for Employment and Production and Development
for differently able people.
Yes, yes.
So according to NCPEDP data 2004, in the higher education, the enrollment of differently able student is only 0.1%. It means that only 1,635 disabled students were enrolled in 119 universities in the country, and out of this 1,635, majority, it was 1,035 were the disabled locomotor disabled people, they were there. So this is the higher education status. In higher education, we have not been able to achieve the enrollment of this differently able group, whereas in the school education, number of schemes have been initiated by the government, like the integrated education or by establishing special schools and so. But in the higher education, what the government at the moment they have done is that they have opened special education departments in the universities, which again are preparing for the teacher education, that is teachers to teach special children in the schools. But in higher education, the teachers are not trained to teach this group of people. Now if we see the reasons for non-enrollment of this group of people in the higher education system, first is there is no support for inclusive education. As I said earlier, that in the school education it was thought of including this group into the integrate this group into the regular stream. But at higher education system, no support has been done for this inclusive education. The second reason is that there is insufficient infrastructure. Though the government policy says that we need to build the infrastructure, but till date the universities and the colleges, they are not at all equipped with the facilities or with the infrastructure of this group of people. The third main reason for this non-enrollment is teachers, they are not trained. So like if a person is there with the visually impaired in the classroom, the teachers in the university don't know how to teach or how to communicate with this group of people. If we have a hearing or speech impaired person, firstly the teachers, they don't even know whether they are not even able to identify whether the person has this disability. So the teachers are not trained. The last and the most important, there can be many other reasons, but I feel the low self-esteem of this group of people. I would like Tata, if he wants to add any other reason.
As Dr. Madhupal has said, the number of training teachers is inadequate in our country. If the situation of the teachers in traditional system of education is that, then we can think about the common mass or common people. In India, the government has not been able to create such type of awareness among the mass or among the poor people to know about the concept of disability and send their children to the schools. And the second thing, what I can say, that the disability, if we see to, or if we will analyze the concept of disability, then we can find that disability is one of the causes or one of the outputs of poverty. If the people are suffered from poverty or poverty is the cause, then in traditional education the cost effectiveness is not there. The cost to enroll in courses is much more higher. They cannot send their children. Or as we talked about inclusive education or integrated education, there also most of the schools are situated in the urban areas. Hence the rural areas do not have the knowledge, or though they have the knowledge, they are not in a position to send their children.
Right, I think that Tata, you said a very important point. I think even the awareness among the people, it is not there. We need to make people aware, the parents, the teachers, the individuals themselves, the differently able people themselves, to be aware of the disability they have and to get them into the mainstream of the education. Now, what is the solution? The solution is definitely one has to integrate into the formal system, but distance education is the solution when we say that we can reach to this unreached group through distance mode. As 83% population of the differently able people live in the rural areas. So the universities are not there, the colleges are not there, the transport system is not there. So we cannot have overnight or in few years make this infrastructure available. But of course, distance mode can be the best alternative to impart education to this group of people. There are various technologies which can be used for the differently able people. The first is the mobile phones, which commonly we are using it. But commonly means at this moment the general population is using it, but the differently abled people at this moment, especially for the education purpose, we are not using mobile phones. Whereas in the developed countries like USA, UK, Canada, there are lots of education institutions which are using mobile phones for educating the people. Tata, would you like to add here something?
Yeah, I would like to add that, like mobile phone, there are so many technologies which are available for disabled people, which are can be shared as assistive technology.
The second which comes to my mind is the iPods, which is the latest technological instrument. The iPods can store a lot of data. So the text can be, or it can be stored here, and the visually impaired or the locomotor impaired people, they can listen to these texts. The next important is again, which is used in the developed countries more, is the digital voice recorders. Now comes the latest technology, which is very much prevalent even in our country, is the use of computers, which I think Tata will be dealing it in detail just in a minute or so. I will just give a brief about the few other technologies which can be used. The next is the audio programs, especially those who are mildly hearing impaired, when you can provide them with the hearing aids. These pictures maybe which becomes more visually attractive to people, those who are hearing and speech impaired. With this, I would request Ramakrishnan to take it on to how computers can be used or integrated into the education of the differently abled people, especially the blind or the visually impaired. Tata.
Okay. As Dr. Madhu Pahar has given a brief account of the concept of disability, the definitions, the categories, and their educational status, and the reasons why they why they are not interested to be the parts of traditional education, and how distance education can be helpful for them. But to bring them into the distance pattern of education, we have to inform, or we have to ask them to know about the use of various information technologies available for them, because by the use of technology only they can compete with the mainstream, or they can come to the mainstream and compete with their own counterparts. As such,
Tata, can I use the second slide for you?
Yeah, technology which has been used for differently abled people, we can call that as assistive technology. Okay, assistive technology, it's not like that any other technology or any technology different from the conventional technology. Is the technology which includes the universal design of the technical instruments or technological aspects, because when the conventional technical instruments have been made, then they might not have thought about the use of those materials by the differently abled. But now in the world, the scenario has been changed, and the differently abled people have fought with the society and with the challenges, and they come forward to use the technology as they like, and they try to fulfill their needs. Hence, they requested some companies or some voluntary and non-governmental organizations have come forward to think about the technology support which can be given to the differently able to perform their work. Hence this in this slide I have
This
shown
is the next slide. Use
Yeah.
of assistive technology in different fields.
in different fields. As in the above slide, we saw that the visually impaired, locomotors, all the categories as we spoke about. And in this slide, what I was thinking that this information technology or assistive technology can be used in various fields, like in education. We can think about the education of the visually impaired. They mostly depend upon the audio system, or they depend upon others to read for them. For that, what they need is that the text is on electronic version, or the text to be recorded on the cassettes, or in this way later on I will come to the use of EduSet also. And like that, the hearing impaired also, that through technology, if some PowerPoint slides will be given, or some sign language, or some picture messages will be shown while teaching, even if the teachers will be trained about some sign languages, then if he the hearing impaired or speechless person will watch the teachers on a screen, then they can, by through the body language of the teachers, the students can assume what the person is speaking about. And in this way it can be used in education and employment. As we normally people use internet, websites, and all these, differently able people can use the website or internet as well, and they can search the employment sites, or they can work in the various private sectors. And as far as communication and entertainment is concerned, in the communication also, as we spoke about the various mobile technology and all this, we can, that's also come under the assistive technology. And the entertainment, various game softwares are available which the children play in their day-to-day life, and they enjoy it. Like that, the differently able people also can use those games, or some differently formulated games through some joysticks or some electronic pointing devices to and they can enjoy that, and they can play with their normal counterparts.
The next slide is on the classification.
If as I spoke about the technology, assistive technology, broadly in computer language, as we use the words input, processing, and output. Okay, when we use something, we should have the knowledge that first we have to give some commands or some instruction, or some devices can be used to proceed further or to express our thinking. Those are called inputs, and to use those devices we use some programs, or we do some acts, that is known as the processing. And where through those input devices, when we perform some programs or some software operations or something on the instruments, then they will give us the output, or some results will come. In this way I divided the entire assistive technology into three parts:
That is input, processing,
and output.
The next slide is input devices.
Yeah, the next slide is input devices, and among in the input devices we have the alternative keyboards. While using the keyboards which normally people use can be used by the visually impaired students also, but the locomotors people have the locomotor disabled people cannot use those keyboards. The keyboards can be made in a different way for them, having some the keys in a different size, or some keyboard, electronic keyboards, or now one software has been developed in which the keyboard will be on the monitor itself, and through some electronic pointing devices, if the locomotor disabled person will point that electronic device towards the key on the showing on the monitor, then that key will be workable. and as such, keyboards can be differently made, and according to the needs, the keyboards can be accessible. And a keyboard, then we can talk of various types of keyboards, electronic keyboards, and some speech keyboards also, some braille dotted keyboards. On the keys itself some dots or some signs will be given, so that the visually impaired students can easily identify the keys. It's very much difficult to remember all the keys until unless we use regularly. The normal people also sometimes miss the keys, or they press some keys twice or thrice, and they do some mistakes. Then we can imagine about the differently abled people. And when a person who do not have fingers or who do not have hands, how he can use the keyboard or mouse? The mouse is generally used to draw the cursor on a point, and if you click through that if you bring the cursor on that point and if you click it, then the item will be opened. But if we do not have that accessibility to the mouse, then how can we operate the system or the switches? Not only the computers, any technical instruments, talk about the audio systems, or talk about the CD players, or talk about the lift switches, anyway, if the electronic pointing machines will be available for the hearing, for the locomotive impaired, then they can use those systems, and they can fulfill their they can fulfill their needs.
The needs they
Yeah,
can fulfill.
and
Okay.
voice recognition is also there. Through voice recognition, one can identify. One can feed his voice, or through some softwares, his voice will be recognized by the computer. And whenever he prepares something, or he gives typing, and when he wants to express something, he will if he switches on the computer or the screen, then his sound will be out from that system. The hearing impaired or speechless people can express their feelings through the computer, so that other people can get them.
Tata,
Okay.
I would like to just I will speak the input devices which you have just discussed about it, because we have little less time, just 5 minutes
Yeah.
left. One is alternate keyboard, second access
Yes, ma'am.
utilities, keyboard additions which you talked about,
Yes.
switches and switch software, interface devices, optical character recognition and scanners, which I think you had it, but we tried to put it on this, but it's not,
Yeah.
somehow it didn't work basically. Electronic pointing devices, touch screens, which you all see on the railway stations or on the airports, touch screen, which a normal person can also do it, but this are specially made touch screens for the differently able people. The joysticks Ramakrishnan just talked about, trackballs, and arm and wrist supports. Now
Yes.
the next is the processing. Would you like to just explain about this?
In brief, I can say that there are many programs to the word compositions, or writing programs, or reading compression programs, or some reading tools and learning for disabilities, or electronic reference tools. Just like that, many softwares are available through which the differently abled people can identify their problems, and they can give the instructions to the systems, or that assistive technological instruments, and they can expect the output.
Processing, he is relating the input processing and the output, through which all we know that is about the computer. We feed something, the computer processes it, and we get an output. So under the processing part, he wants to describe more about the browsers, the word prediction programs, the writing composition programs, electronic references tools, and menu management and security programs. And the next is the output. Tata, would you like to share something?
Output, as the talking large print or word processors. Okay, when we through our input devices we give some instructions to the computer and we process something, then we expect the output. But if something will come on the screen, then how a visually impaired student can read it? But for that we have some screen reading softwares which can be loaded to the system or to the mobile or to those sort of assistive technical instruments through which they can listen the matter whatever comes on the monitor. Like that, the low vision people can use the short circuit televisions in which the text will be enlarged and they can see and read it. If they cannot read it in small size, the letters can be by the use of some magnifiers, the text can be enlarged and they can read it. Like that, some braille printers, braille embossers also there, through which the blind people, if they don't want to listen even also, they can read it through braille. Like normal printers, such embosser is a braille printer which can be attached to the computer, and whenever we give the command, printing command, the one software is there which can translate the text into the braille format, and we can take the printout in braille and the blind people can read it easily. Like that, the scanners and the scanners also can be used to scan the material and save it in word processing in a word format, and they can listen to the text and they can understand it. And like that,
The next slide is use of EduSat for different.
as in EduSat, till today we have achieved one-way video and two-way audio, and two-way video and two-way audio. Okay, briefly I can say that as I said, visually impaired mostly depend upon the audio system. If we speak like this on the EduSat programs, they can easily listen to the speakers, whoever speaks on the dais, and they can, meanwhile if they have any problem, they can ask through telephone, use the telephone and ask the questions. Through this their doubts can be classified. Like if like that, if visual others hearing impaired or speechless people, they can, if the speakers will use some sort of sign languages, they can see them and they can feel the slides and they can.
You were talking about some major organizations, so we will just go through quickly. The National Institute of Visually Impaired, and the list is given here. And the last, Tata Ramakrishnan had given a few internet resources where one can go and find out more literature on this. With this, I thank all of you, and with the end, I would like to say that we need to respect this group of people and not see them with a sympathy. They also have a right to education. Tata, would you like to just sum up in a minute, in a second or so?
Yeah, as Dr. Madhupagha said, the disabled or differently people do not need sympathy. They need some help, or they need the hand which you can put forward to help them to come out of their problems and compete with the normal counterparts, and they can join the mainstream. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.